Hello and welcome to On the Sunny Side. I'm Sunny Grineveld. I'm an entrepreneur and a Forbes Under 30 list maker, and every week I interview research scientists, business leaders, entrepreneurs, people who are shaping the digital economy and who are using tech for good. Now this week I'm incredibly excited to have an outstanding entrepreneur with me as a guest, founder and CEO of Smart Valor. Welcome to the show, Olga Feldmeier.
Hello, Sunny. So nice to be on the sunny side. Thank you so much.
Well, it's great to have you. Now, for those who tune in for the first time, I always start this show with something I call Sunny's Fast Five. 5 quick questions so I get to introduce you to my audience in a short but hopefully original way. And Olga, are you ready for that?
Always.
All right. So are you a morning or a night person?
I'm actually the worst. I'm a morning person that works very late in the night.
What does success mean to you personally?
Well, success, I think it changes with your life stages, right? So I can tell you what it's now, and it was completely different several years ago. So now, since we run digital asset exchange and cryptocurrency exchange, it's actually my success is measured in the number of customers, active customers, and it's really amazing feeling, to have a look at the numbers and see numbers grow. It feels like heaven.
When it comes to the company you run today, Smart Valor, what do you do and why did you start it?
Well, what do we do today? We are basically a digital asset exchange, as I mentioned before, where you can basically buy and sell cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, but also tokenized real assets, such as, for example, physical gold stored in vaults, right? But you buy it as a token in a digital representation. And the reason I started this, I actually, at some point in my life, I imagined that I will be a big banker. And I tried this one, right? I tried really hard. I was working for Barclays and for UBS, but at some point I was so disillusioned with the notion and how banking works today. There was no vision for me, nothing that I would put my life for, right? And at some point, Bitcoin came up, cryptocurrencies, and I realized, wow, this is going to change everything in financial services.
And when you look at some of the recent events that your company has been involved in, now just this week, we saw in Höhle der Löwen, which I guess translates to Lion's Den, that you pitched to the lions, to the investors, which is very exciting. Can you tell us just a little bit of how did that come about and how did you feel standing in front of these investors?
Well, Sunny, actually, for me to get into the show, most startups they're like really trying to raise money, right? For us, we're actually quite well-funded company, so it wasn't so much about money, but about sharing the vision of the company with the mainstream and getting some investors on board, like strategically. So it was actually super interesting experience, because it was super tough, most people don't know anything about blockchain technology or crypto. And obviously, most of those investors they are not expert in this field. So obviously, there was a big, resistance and like, what is this all about? Is this casino or like, what is she talking about, right? And the only person in the jury who was like in-depth expert in that actually basically said, I'm completely out because I invested in some other crypto company.
Would you recommend the experience? Would you do it again?
Yeah, totally. Because look, I mean, for the minimal thing, it's a good pitch practice, right? You need to practice nice because you have only 5 minutes, right? But it's much more than that. I mean, where do you get this visibility? Which startup can put on a Swiss TV advertisement, right? With that lens, like you can't pay for that, right? It's just out of the startup budget, and now you got it, right? And I think, you also need to have something special. So in our case, the special thing was that, the investment in Smart Valor is not only accessible for those investors, for the jury, with the deal, right? No, it's accessible to anybody, right? And why? Because our funding and the whole Smart Valor ecosystem works through something called Valor, our own cryptocurrency, right? And this is what I'm actually offering investors. I'm saying, guys, for 50K, buy Valor, right? At the current exchange price, right? Because it's listed. It's not only listed at Smart Valor exchange, it's listed on a lot of exchanges around the world, right? So it's, it's actually kind of like, whatever you can buy on the stock exchange. So, and this is really, we're the first one, crypto companies there, we're the first one where it's not exclusive deal for investors, anybody can buy Valor. And I think it's like, just even sharing this knowledge, it's super powerful.
This notion of accessibility, this is a very powerful one also for you personally.
I grew up in Soviet Union, countries that does not exist anymore, and basically, nothing was accessible, right? You could not travel, you could not watch TV, what they show abroad, right? You have no money, you have no car, like everything is limited, right? So this idea of access was like always fantasy to me. And the dream, right? And with cryptocurrencies, I understood, well, what is cryptocurrencies? Bitcoin, right? It's a digital currency with a limited supply, run by millions of computers around the world, and nobody can mess with it, right? No national bank can shut it down. Nobody can decide how much currency is created. So this is truly independent. And for most people out there in developing countries, this is access, right? They can buy it, they can sell it, they can get rich with that if they're doing it in the right way, right? So all of a sudden, you don't need Wall Street, you don't need VCs. And the same with companies, Valor, our currency, right? Anybody can buy it. Well, we have some VCs on board, but you know what? It's like we would make it also without it, right? And this is access, this is democratization. And for all the startups out there, I would always consider, if you're in technology, if you're in blockchain technology or somehow related to this technology, it's always to have also your token that powers the ecosystem and gives everybody access.
You said it before, you originally had a corporate career, a very, very good one. What made you decide that you wanted to build a company instead and be this entrepreneur that you are today?
Yeah, well, it was actually very elaborate, decision-making process, right? So, of course, I went through each industry, like, one by one in fintech. I was in banking, right? So I used to work for, well, back then for UBS in wealth management. I was responsible for Central and Eastern Europe distribution. And, I basically looked at everything that we have in fintech, payments, peer-to-peer loans, investment platform, robo-advisors, all the domains, right? And I was trying to figure out like, where is the new technology comes into play that has such a tremendous potential, like fundamentally change how the industry work, right? And there was for a long time nothing until I discovered Bitcoin, right? That was like, wow, peer-to-peer global network, investors just engage with each other directly, selling and buying and exchanging goods. And like, you don't need all of the, no banks, no exchanges, no intermediaries, right? So it totally blew my mind, right? And then it was super easy. I went to San Francisco and was looking for the coolest startup in this space to join first as exercise.
And then later you did, and then you started your own. I mean, that is also a difference, right? One hand working for a company that was very exciting, XAPO, I believe it was, but then you decided to really take the plunge and start up on your own and with co-founders as well.
Yeah.
How did you make that decision?
Well, I was just super lucky. I was super lucky because I invested in Bitcoin back in 2013. then a little bit, then 2015 it already grew like woo, and then 2015 I invested all I have in Bitcoin. It was still like, I don't know, about 3,000 probably, right? And then I sold for 20K, for 20,000, 2, 3 years later, right? And I became all of a sudden millionaire, and I had all this money, and so like, wow, this is amazing, right? So what do I do with that? And the decision was basically, well, we start our own company. And yes, amazing, we don't need investors. We can pay for this company for 2 years. And this is what I basically, because I think the toughest thing at the beginning is to get in investors, right? So luckily I had enough money to do that, and also it's impressive for investors if you say, look, guys, I don't pay salaries to co-founders. We don't need it, right? We just work our ass off and invest our own money. So that normally impresses investors quite a lot.
I mean, you could have also just said, you know what, I'm done. I've seen this great rise in my personal assets, and why work my ass off to build a company, and then in such a groundbreaking space? I mean, where did that courage come from? Why, where did you know that you really wanted to do that?
So there are two things, Sunny, very honestly. Number one, I didn't know how tough it is. I thought it's easier, and I thought like, oh, look, everybody's entrepreneurs. They build great company. It's so sexy. I want to be a CEO of the big company. And I had no clue how tough this really is, right? So, and on the other side, well, what do you do in your early 30s? Like, you call it a day, you retire? No, right? You want to do exciting stuff, right? And if you love risk, and I love risk, I love, like really super risky, exciting stuff, So,
I mean, what is some of the most exciting things or highs and lows that you have then experienced ever since?
well, we launched we're Swiss-based company, right? And here there is no Swiss companies that run like a full-blown cryptocurrency exchange with custody, trading, staking, with all of this, right? And we became the first company in Switzerland to do so. And that was, of course, super exciting. Like, you hear all the teams, they're like, there's a time on the clock when the exchange goes live. And it's actually like, if you hear to like, start of the shuttle or like any, SpaceX, right? Like, operations ready, uh, pressure is ready, da da da, computer. Da. So it was like that, go live, right? It was so exciting. I love it. I love tech, I love cryptocurrency. I love all the, tokenization stuff that is coming up. People will be able to buy, art, digital art, even like real stuff, like precious pictures or precious diamonds or like special collectibles and sport memories. They can buy it as a token, and they can trade it, and they can buy a piece of it, a small piece that nobody could, it's very expensive stuff obviously, and anybody will be able to own anything. This is a real revolution of ownership and, ownership rights. So that's going to be amazing.
And so, I mean, what do you tell to people who, sort of counter that enthusiasm with something like, well, but a lot of these cryptocurrencies are being used to finance drugs and crime, and there's money laundering, and there's all these challenges. Whether it's true or not, is another question, but still, that is frequently sort of the concern that many people mention.
Yeah.
How do you see that, or you as an expert of the space, what do you tell people like that?
Well, I think it's true, and it's very, it has a lot of background, all those arguments, but the things are changing. We're getting, there's a huge progress in the last 10 years. So Bitcoin been around for 10 years, right? And amazing progress. Like today, the majority of companies like exchanges and wallets, they are regulated in the sense that, they do the anti-money laundering screens, checks, and so on, right? And you have to imagine it's like a big stadium, right? And there are a lot of doors. So now, like previously, it was just open. Anybody could walk out and in without a ticket. And now these doors, exchanges and wallets, they get regulated status, like us, right? And so there is somebody watching the doors. So you can imagine that, the butchers or the, the soccer player visitors are now more and more with the ticket. So the industry is evolving, we're getting on traction, these problems of money laundering are getting better. And I think this is where we will win. It's very difficult, it's very tough. In Asia, huge exchanges, they have super liquidity, they have, millions of people that use them. Well, because they don't do a proper KYC check, because nobody likes the question, where is your money from, right? But I think over time we will win.
Hmm. And so how do you see the future of the industry? And where do you think the crypto space is going, and where do you think are also some interesting opportunities at the horizon?
My argument is that banking as it exists today will not be needed at all, right? Because payment is gone, digital currencies, right? Then the loan business, well, there are also a lot of peer-to-peer platforms, right, where people can lend. There's like little intermediary in the middle. And then investments, this is like what we do. On the investment side, you can create a global peer-to-peer network where people, if you have a share of Apple and you don't want it, but I want it, you can sell it to me directly, right? Peer-to-peer within this blockchain-enabled network, right? Because the share is tokenized, it's just a token. You have wallet, I have wallet, I get it. You get the money. Digital national currency, right? So where's the place in all of this for the bank, right? It's gone. And I think it's amazing because it's actually today all these intermediaries, it's a big economic slack. We're all paying for that, right? And it adds up to quite significant resources for the economy. So if we get rid of this and everything is digital, peer-to-peer, efficient, that's a new era. And I'm very happy. I consider myself super lucky that we're leading the way in this industry.
Brave new world. Thank you for painting that vision for those who are just getting started, who are curious about this crypto space, curious to learn more. Where would you send them? Are there books? Are there podcasts? Are there resources that you think are worth reading and worth diving into?
Books and podcasts, that's one thing, but you need to get your hands dirty. Just go open the account, for example, on Smart Valor. I just mentioned that it's an exchange. And you see how this works, right? You need to buy your first 0.01 Bitcoin, right? Just a little bit. You need just to feel, wow, I can send this money and in 20 seconds, it's on the other side of the world, right? So to see how it really works, that's the most important. And the other one is, of course, books and podcasts. My favorite one is super famous, actually. It's by Laura Shin. Laura, so it's written like Laura Shin. And she used to run crypto for Forbes, for many years. She was the chief editor for Forbes also. And now she's writing this podcast. And within the books, there is something called Mastering Bitcoin. And it's actually, not a super exciting book. It's like pretty dry and a lot of technical details. But once you work your way through it, you can say you understand cryptocurrencies.
I'm going to make sure to link all of those in the bottom of the YouTube description. And just one last question for you. If you could give your younger self, when you started Smart Valor, a piece of advice, what would you tell her?
Yeah, I would probably tell you to be more, humble, more modest. Don't rely too much on yourself. Ask more people for help and listen to the market. Better listen to the market. Because you see, the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs like me is that we're so convinced of our idea, we just like, no, oh, this is gonna work. Like, this is so brilliant, right? Like, the world was waiting for this one, right? But you know what? Save yourself a lot of pain, tears, and lost investors. Go out to the people, talk to them, ask them, do you also think it's such an amazing, like, this is, and if just ask 10 random people, if you hear like 7 or 6 times no, then you should probably, ask more people, right? So listen to the market, test your ideas, and Yeah, that would be my advice.
Olga, thank you so, so much for this insightful conversation. It's been such a pleasure.
Sure. Always ready for you, Sunny. Thank you so much. And cheers to all of you guys listening.